All right, let's talk about family drama. Let's to understand what happened last night, you actually have to go back to last year when North Carolina, February 16th, 2022, Pitt goes to UNC, they win, and Jason Capel, assistant coach under his brother Jeff Capel at Pitt, said some things about toughness related to the Tar Heels. B-Dot, who's their in-arena host, tweeted it out like saying, yeah, they're pretty. Like they don't play tough, and we showed that. Ironically enough, you can pinpoint that game as a turnaround point for the Tar Heels. Maybe what happened last night is a turnaround point for the Tar Heels. But clearly, folks have had some issues with Jason Capel, not just from what he said this time last year. It goes all the way back to his time as a player at North Carolina. A lot of people still haven't forgotten what happened in the 8-20 season. A lot of folks haven't forgotten his general attitude as a player at that time. They blame him for a lot of things behind the scene. Just Google Jason Capel and Joe Forte, and you'll see all sorts of think pieces from 2000, 2001 timeframe, okay? So it's not like Jason Capel is a favored son in the Carolina family. Combine that with some things said, you kind of get the gist of this. So last night after they win, Jason Capel was feeling it, man. He felt like he was being disrespected, down to some sort of social media post. And Jeff Capel, when he was asked about his brother, just kind of beating his chest and enjoying the win, here's what he had to say.
It's a complicated relationship with him in North Carolina. He loves it, but I think at times he doesn't feel that back. And I don't know, it started, to be honest with you, in 2009. We played North Carolina when I was at Oklahoma to go to the Final Four. And my brother was there with my whole family supporting me. He had an OU shirt on. And the Carolina fans were pretty towards him, excuse my language, but pretty nasty. And it took one of the former players to say something. And, for me, it's just really interesting, man, because, again, I grew up in this state. And this is one of the most tradition-laden programs in the history of college athletics, not just college basketball. And you hear about the Carolina family. And it's just amazing to me that their social media people would do that. I don't think it's Hubert. Hubert's awesome. I mean, he really is. I don't think it's the players on the team. They are incredibly respectful and really good young guys. Obviously, the game was emotional, and that's the way it's supposed to be as you get into February.
So that's Jeff Capel, head coach at Pitt, talking about the understandably complicated relationship that his brother Jason Capel has with UNC. He brings up a 2009 incident, but again, as I stated earlier, Joe, this goes all the way back to when he was a player at UNC and how people view that time.
Listen, Jason Capel has a lot of attitude. He did as a player. He does now as an assistant coach. He did when he was at App State as a head coach there. That's who he is. That's his personality. And it is amazing to me. And you got to be careful. I've learned, during the football season, and I've learned even recently with North Carolina fans, you can overgeneralize, right? But it is about how you are treated by the people around you. Mm-hmm. So if you're in the building last night, if you're in the Smith Center and you feel like you've earned some sort of credit,
yeah.
And let's be fair to Jason Capel for all of his personality flaws. He was on a team that was an 8 seed in 2000 that made the Final Four, and he averaged 12 points a game on that team. I do think, again now, at the risk of overgeneralizing all of this, I do think there's a portion of the fan base that blames Jason Capel for the 2002 season. Mm-hmm. And if you're not familiar with the 2002 season, Carolina went 8-20, okay? When I tell you that North Carolina is the most spoiled fan base on the planet, okay? They're up there.
Yeah, they are.
They're up there.
I don't disagree with you.
Now, part of that, and I learned this last year, is their own standard. Mm-hmm. If you don't believe me, go back and look through all of your favorite people on Twitter who follow Carolina. I'm not saying that condescendingly. I'm saying legitimately go back and look. There were tweets about pitchforks being descending upon the Smith Center for Hubert Davis after they had lost to Tennessee, after they had lost to Kentucky. People were losing their minds last year because of their own standard. And a part of that standard is a consistent excellence. And the one part that lacked that consistent excellence was the 0-2 season.
Mm-hmm.
So to go 8-20, to have like every streak other than the Clemson home winning streak end, and for him to be as bombastic and kind of out there as he was, and also let's not forget, his dad Jeff Sr. was a head coach, and even at that time, his older Jeff, the brother, had been at Duke and was again on a team that played for the national championship, but he was also on a team that without Mike Krzyzewski had kind of bottomed out.
Yeah.
When Jason was coming through, Jason Capel and Damian Wilkins were considered like program savers.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for Jason, his career didn't work out that way. Damian Wilkins ended up at NC State at the same time. I actually think they played at the same high school. So we can get lost in what we think a player is supposed to be, and then we can really misremember what they were, because he was a valuable part. If you were, and we've talked about this often, that 0-0 team gets forgotten forever.
All the time.
If they had done that at any other school.
Legends.
You're 8 seeds with 2 football players playing part-time. You knock off a 1 seed to get to the Final Four, and with a coach now making his second Final Four in 3 years.
They get honored at halftimes.
And everybody wanted to get rid of that coach. So there's a lot of angst that the fan base has towards that era, towards that team, towards Jason Capel.
And Matt Doherty, by the way, which they seem to have, through coaches, have kind of at least... That's softened a bit.
That's what I'm getting at here.
Matt Doherty has softened a bit too.
He has made his efforts,
That's the key.
But never forget, like, we keep wanting to hold the past sins against people. Like Jason Capel, the picture of Cretan Labo with his tongue out. Allegedly, that was, what had kind of triggered Jason. And I don't think the person who tweeted the picture of Cretan from the official Carolina account was actually trolling Jason Capel. We should probably start there.
Okay, so I'm glad you brought
or at least acknowledge
let's
that.
acknowledge and give context to what you're referencing there. So, because Jeff Capel brought it up, and when I heard the quote that there was something about UNC's social media, I thought to myself, UNC's basketball social media is not one to get trolly. Okay, I there are basketball program accounts that get trolly. They're not one of them. They usually keep it pretty straight laced, right? It's like, well, what was it? And I had to scroll, and I scrolled. I didn't see anything, and then somebody pointed out to me, hey, is it because Lebo's kid is wearing 25 and he's got his tongue sticking out? I thought, well, that's kind of weird. It's not often that you see a walk-on being featured on a game day tweet on the graphic. That's kind of weird. Now, maybe they were like kind of poking fun at Jason Capel. But again, you know me, I'm chronically online. So I was like, well, wait a second. Let me keep scrolling. Let me see how Carolina's account handles these game day tweets. And you go back to the Boston College game. I forgot the kid's name off the top of my head.
It was a different walk-on.
Number 30 is a senior walk-on for the Boston College game. He was featured. I'm like, this is just something that UNC does. And then it also gets to who's handling these tweets, who's putting the graphics together, who's putting that out. And this is where you and I have this realization, and I think a lot of other people have to have this realization. Most people don't know what Jason Capel's number was. It was 21 years ago. A lot of people do not remember what happened 10 years ago.
But I can
so it's
see
not a knock
him,
on Jason, but I can see where he thinks
exactly.
that.
And I could see Jason, you put it all together. Hey, man, these people still blame me for 0-2. Hey, I remember 0-9, just supporting my brother.
And they got mad.
Because remember...
They got mad at Roy Williams.
I was going to say,
remember when Kansas sticker.
Remember when Roy Williams the previous year showed up with a Kansas sticker?
They wanted him out. Like, if you love Kansas so much, go back.
But again, this gets to my larger point that there is a portion of the Carolina fan base that the greed is insatiable. They just want everything. And to me, there are pockets of it. And when it happens, and when it's illustrated like it was last night, I could definitely understand where Jason Capel's coming from.
I understand where Jason Capel's coming from, but I will say 2 things about this. It does take 2 parties to mend fences, all right? And I was not there last night, and I'm kicking myself for not dealing with traffic to get out to a 7 o'clock game yesterday because I missed the fireworks, right down to apparently Jason Capel and Steve Kirshner. You want to talk about a Kirsch nugget? There's a hell of a Kirsch nugget for you. Apparently they got into it when they were leaving the court, right? So I'll say 2 things about this because I brought up Matt Doherty, and it looks and it appears that Matt Doherty has A, mellowed out, B, is at least there's some sort of like understanding now between the 2 parties, even if that was a very raw time for Matt Doherty and his part of UNC. Of course, without Matt Doherty, Roy doesn't come back. We covered this in the Roy Williams podcast.
We all have our roles.
We all got roles, man. Seriously, we all have roles.
Yeah.
And I think Matt Doherty kind of understands that now, and a lot of growth and maturity. Jason might not, but that might be how Jason's wired, and he's looking for the slights.
Because it's also fresh because he's still competing against them.
He is.
And now it's not just he's the former player, it's he's with his brother, the former Duke player.